You're listening to
Wrestling to the Max.
Alert, clear all channels.
This is an exclusive.
How you like that?
And your hosts, Gary Vaughan, Sean Garmer, and Paul Leazar.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling to the Max's NXT Chicago review show, and we are here brought to you by W2Mnet.com. That's right, the place where you go find all your great wrestling needs, plus a lot of great podcasts as well when it comes to the world of wrestling. Also, don't forget to go subscribe to the Wrestling to the Max stream, which you can also get a lot of our great reviews besides this one, including our Backlash 2017 review, along with Raw, SmackDown Live, 205 Live, and NXT. Also, don't forget, if you want everything from the Wrestling to the Max family when it comes to W2Mnet.com, make sure you go subscribe to the W2M Network. That'll get you not just us, but everyone else on that website. We just want to give you guys a plug on that as well. All right, well, I am your host, Gary Vaughan. Along with me is Mr. Sean Garmer.
What's up, people?
And Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And guys, we are in for a treat tonight, talking NXT Chicago. The crowd was popping. Everything was going pretty interesting on this, and we'll be getting into all that and a lot more. And, you know, we got to start this thing off by talking about the first match, which, of course, included some great stuff when it comes to Roderick Strong and Eric Young. And these two guys went at it. And, of course, you know, you can't forget that, you know, Eric Young is part of Sanity, which he has his two helpers out there, and they are going to be in tow with him in this part of the show, of course. Without Nikki Cross, of course, she had a big match later on in the show, so she did not help out. But, you know, in the long run, guys, I mean, we got a pretty interesting match, a match that was back and forth. Really, Roderick Strong came out hot, you know, took out both Killian Dane and Wolf, and made sure that they were not available for some of the beginning of this match. And, of course, he had to continually do that throughout this process to eliminate them. It was kind of a funny match because of the fact that we did have Roderick Strong in this whole thing, kind of scientifically working Sanity, keeping them off balance. And he was, you know, one guy against three, pretty interesting. He ends up coming out of this thing victorious and beating Eric Young in a very interesting turn of events. I'll have to say it that way. I, you know, enjoyed this match. What did you think, Paul?
Rock solid opener, really. Like they did a great job, I think, of planning this out. Roderick sort of having to work against the odds, as you mentioned, and really doing, I think, an awesome job of having all of the interference sort of flow into the match. And for me, this really, like, this made Roderick look absolutely incredible, right? Like, he's smart, he's overcoming the odds, he ends up beating Eric Young after the big lumbar check and everything. And for me, it kind of feels like a little bit of a blow to Sanity. So hopefully on NXT TV they get to come back strong and continue the beatdowns and get some strong wins under their belt. Because right now they're kind of looking a little like, maybe it's just because I like them so much, but they look weak in this match. And if it's to get Roddy over, I think that's fine, because he definitely needed the boost. But I don't know if it should come at the sacrifice of Sanity, which is a really hot act, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think you're going to have this when, you know, let's be honest, EY is not the guy that they really care about too much in this group. It's Killian Dane and Nikki Cross, and even she, you know, she technically lost, even though she didn't get pinned or whatever. But yeah, I think, you know, I felt like Roddy's a guy he's ready to go somewhere else. He's ready to be going into the main event angle, going for the title and stuff like that. And I think you need wins. You need to look good. The fans were super, super behind him. He got to look really smart at the beginning, taking them out, and then obviously had to fight through with them various times. Sort of underdog story there, but I liked it. I like what you got here. It was a good opener, and Roddy wins. It makes sense. Don't know if it's going to be him or Aleister Black on the next pay-per-view, but it gives him options, and that's good too.
Yeah, exactly. Options are not a bad deal. And, I like what you guys are saying here. And the one thing I just want to point out is, they really wanted to build Roderick strong. And as much as it would have helped Sanity, and maybe it wouldn't have really killed Roderick Strong, but at the same point, it's kind of hard to have him come into this matchup and lose for the fact that they just gave him all that time over the last 2 to 3 NXTs, showing all the video packages, all the heartwarming stories about him, his road to success, and all of that. It almost makes sense now. I kind of picked Sanity for the fact that kind of thought, it's even better to have this continue. To have him battle against Sanity for a longer period of time, to where he kind of like does what his co-friend did, Ty Dillinger, for a little while. Ty Dillinger didn't beat Sanity right away. It took some time, and I thought it would have been a good idea to kind of have Roderick Strong go to that same formula and fight it out. And to what Paul was saying about hurting Sanity, it is interesting because Sanity has not exactly been what they were. They've kind of been on the back burner for a little while now, and they're kind of, I don't want to say resting on the laurels, but in a way they kind of have. They've kind of set them back in the back part of this and kind of let other things happen. Hopefully they will come out strong. I expect all the members of Sanity to be holding some kind of gold in their future. That's my goal for them. I don't know if that'll happen, but we'll see. I think we all kind of like Sanity for the most part. I know I'm a big proponent. I know Paul is, and I know Sean, you like some of the members. I know you're not a big EY fan.
He's good for what he is, but look, he's EY. I don't think that he's gonna do anything great for WWE as far as what you're expecting out of Killian Dane and Nikki Cross to be your future. EY is not gonna be that guy.
Yeah, no, I concur on that. That's the truth. So. Well, let's move on from this matchup, and let's talk about one. I'm really interested in how you guys think about it, and I'll tell you definitely how I do. Let's talk about the UK Championship. That's right. That was, a matchup that was big. In fact, Jim Ross came out to an ovation, if you'll say it that way. The people loved Jim Ross coming out to call this match, of course, because he is doing the UK shows and will be a mainstay on commentary for those. So besides that, they jumped into this match with Tyler Bate facing off against the Bruiserweight, Pete Dunne. And, boy, what an ovation for those guys, too. I was really surprised how much the crowd loved Pete Dunne, for sure, here in Chicago. But these guys, boy, I can't say enough about this matchup. In fact, I'm not going to break it down completely. I'll just say this. They had one heck of a match. One of my match of the year contenders right now as we sit. There's many we've already had, but this is definitely one in my book. And boy, just a great chemistry. They did some great stuff in this that really just left you just kind of thinking, man, can they do any better? But Pete Dunne does come out victorious in a surprising fashion. The way the formula worked out, guys, I really felt Tyler Bate was actually going to pull this out. Sean, what was your reaction, and what did you think of this match?
Oh man, this was one ridiculous, awesome match. These guys just went out there and put on a show-stealing affair. Honestly, they were just constantly going at it, and the thing is, they already had a great match at the UK special, so it's like already you're outdoing what was already a great match, and an airplane spin is a near fall in 2017. That's amazing in itself. Just these guys, it's amazing that they're 20 and 23 and put on a match like this, whatever. Meltzer wants to give it 4 stars and be condescending. It is what it is. But this is a 5-star match. This was amazing. The crowd was insane for this, which, yeah, it helps. But you can't tell me that it didn't help the Nakamura and Zayn match. It didn't help a lot of the other matches that we've seen that end up being great, phenomenal matches in NXT. The crowd is a part of NXT as much as the wrestlers are, and as much as and I give they did it during Backlash too, so it's not just that it was NXT and they get the special treatment. I also give them a lot of credit for killing the CM Punk chants and all that stuff. We didn't need that BS on this show, and these guys just went out there and put on one hell of a match, and man, talk about trying to top that, not just on this takeover, but maybe the next takeover.
You guys already talked about a lot of the big stuff, so I'll try to pick out some of the little things here. These guys went out there and essentially worked at a breakneck pace that you would find in a Dragon Lee Hiromu match, but much less reckless and more methodical, if that makes any sense. So they open up and they do the standard, headlocks and locks trading and all that good stuff. And then they immediately start going into the big stuff. Big punches. There's that big X-Plex on the apron. And from that point on, they're off to the races, throwing big bombs, and the speed is just phenomenal. From the airplane spin to how quickly they're snapping off a lot of these moves down the stretch to the story of, Tyler Bate taking one risk too many, and that's what ends up costing him the title. Is done just sort of takes him out with the bitter end, and the crowd just, from the minute the bell rang, they ate this up with a silver spoon and didn't look back until the plate was empty. And at the bottom of the plate is Pete Dunne biting down on that UK Championship, looking all kinds of awesome. So I was on the fence. I had to watch this twice. I'd lean more towards 5 than 4 3/4 personally. But there's no doubt about it that this match was absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely. And one of the best of the year so far.
Yeah, a big treat for me. And, you guys watch a lot more New Japan than I do. A ton more, let's say it that way. But, for me and what I've seen this year, this may be the tops of what I've seen out of WWE. I mean, just at the top of my head. And some of the New Japan matches you guys have seen and that you guys have already marked down for definite match of the years, this to me, I mean, it sings a lot of high praise when you guys are giving it 5 stars. It really does, because you guys have watched a lot of good wrestling this year. So it just showcases what they did here and how important it is. If you ask me personally, I look at this as a very awesome thing for the UK show itself, because I think the casual fans, that may be watching Backlash and may have tuned into NXT Takeover Chicago just because they saw it on SmackDown. They said, "Oh, we should totally watch that. We'll just check it out on Friday, Saturday night." And there you go. I mean, now they have something to look back at and say, "Wow, maybe I should check out this UK show." I don't know how you guys feel about that. I just think it showcased what the UK show can offer.
I think. Go ahead.
It's exactly what it was for. And to do a title change, I think, before you actually start showing the show. I said show twice, that's bad. But, the thing is, too, I would put a caveat in here that we got to be very careful of only looking at it from the prism of the network special and this, and understanding that when you go to a TV show, very much like 205 Live, you're not going to get this every week. You have these on special shows for a reason, and because you're trying to get them to watch the show, but you have to understand it's also TV. They may not get the time on the regular TV to do stuff like this. So we got to lower the considerations of it, but it certainly piques your interest. It certainly gets you interested in Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Trent Seven and what these guys are going to do going forward. And they also, I don't know how much they've done to expand the roster, but 205 Live also benefits from having a much deeper roster. How far are they going to be able to get with the smallish amount of guys that they have disposable to them?
I think what this does is if the casual fans happen to tune into this takeover special and saw this match and are hooked, great. But I think this was more designed to get the people who watch NXT every week and maybe haven't given the UK show a shot to give them a shot. Because I think you see more often than not, if you're an NXT fan, I don't know if they're watching the UK stuff. And if this doesn't make you want to do that and you're a fan of NXT, there ain't nothing out there that will. It's not the perfect definition of what you're going to see every time you watch a UK show, but this is a pretty damn close one because, these guys were going balls to the wall, and you're not going to get that every time. But I think as far as smart match work and a lot of the holds that you got here, I think this is a really great impression for that show.
And not just that, you got a mix of everything. Bate doing the spiral tap and the standing shooting star thing. I didn't even know he could do that, so that was amazing. And just like it's, I saw somebody make the joke of, well, if you turn the crowd down and do something with the colors, it'd be 205 Live already. But with some of the flying that was going on. But that's about as much as they do on 205 Live. It's not like they go crazy with it. So, but still, I think that this, between what you saw on Friday, which we'll talk about on the Monday show if you're listening to this thing in order, and what we're going to get going for, which we still don't know when the thing's going to air, the first episode or whatever. But interesting that they're doing this so quickly with them. They've been on NXT. I wonder if they're going to be now a regular part of NXT as well, to give them something else to do. And to have them be shown here in the States and be with that crowd and them get to know them more. Something we didn't really get with the 205 Live guys outside of the CWC, because they immediately went into that, you're on Raw and now you have your show. And you didn't really get to totally be with that NXT crowd and get into the people that are more likely to watch you, like Paul said, not necessarily the main roster viewers. They're not necessarily going to check out the network and watch. It's hard enough to get them to watch the takeovers as it is, and hard enough to get them to watch NXT. Now you get them to try to watch other shows. And the more niche you get, the less likely it is that they're watching. So why not go to the audience that is more likely to watch you, that will watch almost all wrestling? I think at this point the UK show looks better than 205 Live does, I think, if you're just going by what you've seen recently.
Yeah, and this is a small sample that we have right now, but I think you're right on that. Right now, at this point, a lot of the UK stars look bigger. They look like they have more star power. I don't know if that's really the truth, but it just feels that way.
I think outside of like Austin Aries and Neville. Probably,
but you could also add some bigger names over there. You could throw Neville on the UK show, and that's already a huge name to be part of that. So that's just the fact that 205's afforded those names to be there at this point. But I don't know. I think right now 205 just does not have that same momentum. I don't think they really have allowed them to. It's kind of weird to say that, but it seems like they're really trying to get this UK show going, and they're really working hard at it compared to what they're really doing with the 205 Live at this point, at least. So we'll see. But no, this match between Bate and Dunn was excellent, super awesome. If you want to recommend a match to someone, this is definitely one of them. And also, you guys made a lot of great points on what they were doing and what they were gearing and who they were gearing this to. I think also this helps with the fact that the internet popped for this. This was all over the internet. People were talking about this. And that's also a big force behind what WWE wanted to do, right? They wanted to get this out there on the internet for people to be like, oh, my God, we've got to check out this show, UK show. I've never heard of this, So just a point.
Yeah, I think I've seen more social media presence between these two shows this weekend than we've seen in a while for WWE as far as just what's happened. And that's not the only thing from this show. We'll get to it later, but just like between all the, from Backlash from this show it's WWE mission accomplished as far as getting the things going into stuff going forward. Tuesday and Wednesday too.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about the match that had to follow this one, which was, it's a tall task. Let's talk about Asuka taking her women's championship and defending it against Nikki Cross and Ruby Riott. And this is a match that I think we were all kind of curious to see how it would go down, if it would be, one awesome match or if it would be just kind of a cluster. And I think, for the most part, it was decent. This is a match that, it had some of the same things you've seen in triple threat matches. But the one thing you have to say about this is Asuka was definitely the dominant factor here. Really was the one that Nikki Cross and both her and Ruby Riott were really trying to overcome throughout this entire match. Really the main focus, which is not a bad thing. She is the women's champion, right? And, outside of all that, you get a pretty decent match here. I wouldn't say it was perfect at any point, really, but it was a pretty decent match. Asuka does retain, though. And that's something that I think a lot of people were kind of expecting out of this whole thing. I don't know. I mean, how did you feel about this one, Paul?
To be fair, if any match on here gave it the old college try to follow that, I think these ladies still went out there and did a fine job of it. This was one that very much stuck to the normal WWE triple threat formula. Riott and Cross mostly handling a lot of the work. Asuka gets in there a little bit at times with both. And I think you get a nice sample piece of the different match combinations that you have in here one-on-one, but it never really came together to be anything more than just a really great formula match. And Asuka, of course, does win with a nice sliding kick after she breaks up a pinfall and all that good stuff. So, I think for what they were trying to accomplish, they certainly did that. But it's just is handcuffed a little bit by the basic formula they have to work here.
Yeah, I think they tried a little bit here and there to make it a 3-person thing. But yeah, it's difficult because the feud was really between Nikki and Ruby Riott, and Asuka was kind of there as the overlording person because she's the person with the championship, and her and Ember was more of the thing with those two, and it was really about those two feuds coming together. So they tried to give, each one their moment with Asuka, and then have Ruby and Nikki kind of going at it too, and Asuka just kind of take advantage of that, honestly, to get the win. I thought it was still a really good match. Just it's hard to follow what came before you, and then just I think that sense of you never ever really felt that Asuka wasn't going to win. So when they don't give you those moments, it's really hard to really get into, to get truly invested for me, is when you're able to take me out of that feeling of, okay, I know who's going to win, but wow, you really made me feel like the other person was going to win. That's when you connected. If you never really get to that moment, then it's not their fault. It's just sometimes it's like Asuka's been so dominant. They're really going to have to do a lot to make you think, oh man, that was it. That was that moment.
Yeah, I think so. And I think maybe what threw a wrench in this whole thing could have been the Ember Moon's injury. This could have been the point where she did come in here and finally beat Asuka and win, and then Asuka would have a leg to stand on by saying, you never beat just me, you beat, me because of, all these other factors. So that could have been the big thing here. What would you guys say? Do you think that, if Ember Moon would have been a part of this matchup, it would have maybe been a better match? Do you think it would have been a match that would have ended up with Ember Moon being the champion? I'm just kind of curious what you guys think about that factor.
If Ember was here, I still don't think you would have had a title change. You might have had some more focused parts to highlight the feuds, as well as just a bit more highlighting across the board for the different singles matches possible here. But I don't know if much would have really changed. I mean, obviously Ember can do a bit more of the high flying and has the explosive element on her side as well. But I think what you got here would have just been about the same with Ember in there.
Fair enough. And I think, for the most part, I think that they all did a good job in this match. I don't want to downplay it. I think they, like Paul, you just pointed out a while ago, it was really about they kind of stuck to that formula WWE does with a triple threat. So, nonetheless, I think that they did a fine job. But I think when it comes to the end of the day, it will still be a big deal between Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross. Asuka will probably move on, or maybe Ember Moon will be healthy by the time this all shakes out to have a reheated feud between those two or whatever they plan to do. So this is interesting. I think it's still an interesting situation with Asuka being champion. I just think it was kind of a cool down moment here because this is not so interesting for the fact that we knew Asuka was going to win. So let's talk about the NXT Championship match that took place on this show. And, of course, that means that we had Bobby Roode and Hideo Itami face off in the ring. And Hideo Itami has looked pretty dominant against Bobby Roode coming into this, seemingly able to do pretty much whatever he wanted to Bobby Roode. And we almost thought it was going to be a go to sleep pretty much right away in this match. I mean, it was right there, but Bobby Roode was able to escape. And that started this match out. And, Hideo Itami and Bobby Roode both, I think, equally looked pretty well in this match. We got one where I feel like they made Hideo Itami feel important, feel like he was a guy that was to be reckoned with. But Bobby Roode finds a way to pull this thing out. And, I think a lot of us kind of thought Bobby Roode would, but, Hideo Itami kind of gave us that fear that he may be able to do it. Bobby Roode's still your NXT champion, Sean. What did you think about this?
This was actually pretty good. I enjoyed this. Bobby Roode can kind of be a bit bland sometimes in his matches, but I thought that they worked really hard. Hideo worked really hard on his end. So, I thought this came off as one of Roode's better matches that he's had, either going for the title or being champion. And I think you wanted that big moment from Hideo. He hits the GTS, but it's too close to the ropes, and Roode's able to go to the floor. And the finish is just so smart and makes Bobby Roode come off so well. The thing you never saw in TNA, he wins clean, and he wins by outsmarting the other guy, something that a heel should do. A lot of credit for that.
I really enjoyed this match, and I think to Sean's point, I just there's a large part of me that doesn't think Bobby Roode works for everybody, because he's not what you think of as a more modern day worker. He's a throwback, very much so, and there are times where he can be a bit boring, and I don't want that to come off like I love everything he does, but I would say 3/4 of the time...
He's less boring than Randy Orton.
It's true. That's true. And Bobby works best when there is a story around a match, because I think that's what he excels at in wrestling, is if he's out there with a point to prove in this match, whether it's for him or his opponent, he's going to make sure that shines through. And I think both the guys did that really well in this match. This entire match was designed so that Hideo can be back in the main event scene and look like he can compete. And they certainly did a magnificent job of that. Itami looks all kinds of badass in this. He's not taking any of Bobby's shit. And the only way Bobby comes out of this is if he's smarter, and he does. He gets out of the GTS, 2 big DDTs, which Itami sells like he died. And, Bobby comes out of here looking great. I think this was a really great piece of business. One of my favorite matches of the year, even though it's not, top tier match of the year stuff. This was awesome.
Yeah, and you guys are talking about Bobby Roode and what makes him look really good. This whole feud has been really fast. This has had such a short timetable to build. That has not come off very well for Bobby Roode. It may work more in favor of Hideo Itami, to be honest with you, because he doesn't have to say a lot. He just acts, does what he does, and what he does is, pretty much come in there and take you out anytime that he just wants to. And that's a good thing for Hideo Itami. But I think, that was what we were kind of getting at here with the Bobby Roode situation. He did not really come off like, great when it came to the story of just a blown by itself. In the future, is he going to do great? Yeah, I think so. I'm looking forward to see what else he has to offer. And I think this will also, come to fruition where Hideo Itami continues this feud with him, and it'd probably get even better. So, especially if they want to push Hideo Itami to be the next NXT champion, or at least stay in that realm of, the NXT championship. So, I think overall, pretty positive stuff what we got here. Very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to see if Bobby Roode just stay champion longer, or if they're going to, finally cut this thing short for him. Let's move on, though, and let's talk about the main event of this show, which is the Tag Team Championships of NXT. And that, of course, means that the Authors of Pain and Paul Ellering come down to the ring, along with the guys that are going to try to take those championships away from him, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, DIY. And this, of course, is a ladder match, so those belts are hanging high above the ring. And this ends up being a pretty crazy match for the fact that we had all those ladder shots. It's pretty much embodies everything you've seen in a ladder match. They do a pretty good job of using the ladders. Of course, the Authors of Pain are so big and so strong. It doesn't always mean that they need them, but they do use them effectively. I think DIY, of course, like always, comes out looking pretty awesome in this effort. The crowd loved DIY. They were chanting their names constantly. This was a big deal. I love the fact that Ellering got involved in some of this match. That was another great thing we really have not seen yet from him. So that's, when it comes to actually getting inside the ring is what I mean.
Especially for a guy that old where he could easily, if something could go wrong, hurt himself.
Oh, yeah. You were like me, Paul, Sean. You were sitting there thinking, "Oh God, is he going to get hurt?"
Yeah.
So, but you got to love it. You got to love the fact that he was willing to do that and be a part of that. And outside of that, I mean, this whole process was a lot of fun to watch. Very, very entertaining stuff. You kind of were waiting to see if DIY would pull it off, but they could not. They did lose. And now you have the Authors of Pain still your NXT Tag Champions, and they come out looking pretty good in this. Now, here's the interesting part about this as well. We're going to go ahead and I'll throw this in there and let you guys talk about this entire picture. But we do post-match have Gargano and Ciampa, kind of hugging it out, doing their thing, saying, good try, all that stuff, going up the ramp, waving at the crowd. The crowd loves it. And then Ciampa made the smartest decision in his life and takes down Johnny Gargano. And the crowd hates it. They are definitely not in favor of this, screaming F you, Ciampa, a-hole, everything under the sun. Ciampa puts, Gargano through a table. I mean, just really destroys him here. Boy, I mean, that
Gary
was
must
very
have
interesting.
been screaming like a little girl inside.
Well, it's kind of funny. Paul had mentioned that he had watched the UK Championship match twice. I watched this about 12 times, maybe 15. Just repeat, and just like thinking, man, just seeing championship all over Ciampa. But anyway, let's talk about this whole match and the end here. I mean, this was pretty hot stuff. What did you guys think about it? I mean, Paul, I know you were really interested in this match.
This match was great, and it's not because of DIY. It's because of those virtuosos on the other side of the ring and the Authors of Pain. These guys are incredible. They continue to get better and better every takeover. They just get it. Like I don't think I've ever seen a young team come in so fast and just click. I mean, you could say American Alpha for sure, but I mean, these guys, for people who had very little wrestling experience to just come in and continually do that. And you could say it's DIY, it's the Revival on the other side of the ring making these guys look great. It's not. I think these guys are worth a lot more than people are going to give them credit for. And I'm not selling DIY short because they were phenomenal in this match. And this match was about building up to that big thing. You get to see Gargano take that big ladder shot as he tries to save Ciampa. They work together throughout the match to save each other from big moves from the Authors, and suddenly turn it around into their advantage, and it's almost enough to get them the victory before they eat a super collider, and that's all she wrote. And I mean, man, poor Candice LeRae to be widowed at such a young age after what Ciampa did to Gargano is just heartbreaking.
Thankfully, she did say later that he is okay, but he is emotionally distraught by what happened with his dear friend Ciampa, or somebody he thought was his friend. You know what? We were calling for it to happen. It finally did. It was a cool moment at the it was very heart wrenching just because it's like you say you think it's happening, but until it happens, it's just one of those things that you say, right? And then just they really went with it, having him do a freaking air raid crash all the way to the not even the announce table. The table's on the freaking platform. That's insane. The only thing is, this is where doing the crowd shots kind of backfired on you because you got people laughing, which weren't so good. Don't know why that would be happening, but some people are just cruel, I guess. But look, this is I think to the people that are upset that why I wanted to see him on the main roster as tag teams or whatever, they always had more to give as singles guys than they did as a tag team on the main roster because the main roster doesn't really care about tag teams, and we know that. It's obvious. Most of the tag teams that they have are jobbers or family teams that a lot of them aren't going to go anywhere other than being in the tag team forever. And, Vince just doesn't really give too much about tag teams. They're there for him to find the one guy that he thinks is going to do something, and then he turns him on the other guy, and he focuses more on their singles run. And this way, you don't have to go through that with Gargano and Ciampa. They can have the storyline we wanted them to have. Now, who knows how long Ciampa's going to be out with his injury, but or they can do it on the main roster if he's hurt too long and they feel like they need to just call him up. But I just feel like this is the call that eventually was going to be made. They've been teasing this for a long time. It needed to happen, and hey, you can. They were great as a team. They had some awesome merch, but now Johnny Wrestling can be a super baby face, and Ciampa can be that heel that we know he is, that he's great at.
Exactly, and that's what makes me excited about this whole thing is because, we do have Ciampa, a guy that's kind of almost a natural heel. I mean, ever since I've seen him work on Ring of Honor or wherever he's been, he's just a great athlete. He does a lot of great things, and he's a natural heel. And I think Gargano is just a perfect babyface. I mean, this guy, he's kind of like, in a way, it kind of makes me feel like a Sami Zayn kind of guy that people just love. They get behind him. Johnny Wrestling, you hear the chants all the time. He's just a crowd favorite. So I think overall, this is going to be a really fun feud to watch. I cannot wait till these guys are able to get in the ring where both guys are healthy and do their thing. I think this will be something that we'll be seeing headline the next takeover. And, maybe not be the main event, but be one of the biggest matches on that card,
I mean, and they already gave us a taste for that Cruiserweight Classic match. Imagine when there's this real tension and real, this story behind it now, how much more amazing it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The one thing that I do have a little fear of, to be honest with you guys, is the fact that you hear me all the time. Of course, I'm super partial towards Ciampa, but it's just because I've been a big fan of his for a long while. But what my point on that is my fear is that, maybe they don't use him as much as I think they're going to use him. Maybe they don't push him as far as I think that they could push him. How do you guys feel about both these guys as single stars? Do you think that these guys can reach, the ceiling, or do you think that these guys may get lost in the shuffle now that they're not a tag team?
I mean, realistically, as great as the split was, I'm really dumbfounded by this because the tag team division on any sort of show is just kind of in the crapper, and you have a team that's so easy to get behind and so easy to like and so easy to root for and are immensely talented that you just kind of throw by the wayside. And don't get me wrong, I want to see this feud as much as the next guy, but if their intention at any point in the locker room and in the booking meetings and wherever these guys talk about the shows was to maybe have a preference or do something right by the tag team division, this is a major setback. Just because I don't, there's not another babyface team on the roster anymore that really makes you think these guys could really turn in something with any tag team, and suddenly the division is must watch, and that's what DIY was, and now that's over. I think they'll be fine as singles. I don't know how far Gargano's going to get. I think Ciampa might have a better success ceiling, if you want to put a term on it, I guess, just because I think he works great both sides. He's a great worker. He's a great promo. Gargano's always sort of struggled in the promo department for me, so we're just going to have to see if NXT can develop that more, and hopefully that rises. But I think as a tag team, they could have really set a new standard as far as main roster stuff goes.
Yeah, and if Gargano needs a tag partner, if this ever ends up where he gets done with a feud with Ciampa, if that ever does take place, and he's not on the main roster, that means Gargano could have a tag partner like maybe the Velvet Dream. So,
I'm sure if Ciampa ever needed a tag team partner, Gary, you would make your services available as well.
Oh, I am ready tonight. Let's do this thing. I will shave my head tonight. Let's do it. But anyway, I don't know if I'm hard rock enough, but I'll try.
Can you grow a beard like that, Gary?
Do what now?
Can you grow a beard like that?
My beard's not like that, but I could possibly. I just have to get rid of the wide hair that I need. I need to do that Best for Men or whatever that is. What are they?
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just do my hair. My beard's already kind of red, so maybe I just need to get it redder. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. My wife would probably freak if I shave my head though. But let's talk about a rating for this show. I'm really curious what you guys thought about this actual show overall. Sean, how did you feel?
This is a 9 show for me. You got a fantastic match you need to go see right now if you haven't seen it. And Bait and Dunn, you had a good opener, you had a pretty good women's title match, you had a great main event with the ladder match, and you had a borderline great main NXT title match. So I don't know. Maybe you do it less than that, but I don't know how you can say that when you have everything on the show was nailing it, and more.
I went 9.5. I loved this show top to bottom. The opener's great. The women's title and the NXT championship match both delivered in their slots very well. The UK title completely blows everything else out of the water. Pretty well, I would say. And then I gave that ladder match 4 3/4. I loved that to pieces, and it helps that extra bit at the end was just a landmark moment for NXT if you've been following it for a while. So this is an incredible takeover, definitely one of the best. I would put this right up there with our Evolution and Heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm right there. I think for me, this has got to be at least a 9. For the fact that, I think that overall, every match had a point. Everything gave you pretty much its all. I even had Hideo Itami and Bobby Roode. I really was kind of thinking, oh my God, how are they going to outdo what the UK guys did? What's going to happen here? Is this going to be important? And it still felt important, and they did a great job. And just start to finish, really loved it. It all had a point. It all made sense, and it just felt good coming out of this. I was I'll be honest with you, it's a good pay-per-view when you get done watching it and you feel a little bit more hyped up. Mm-hmm. You're like, I want more. Great stuff. So there you go. That is our rating for NXT Takeover Chicago. We hope you enjoyed it. Hey, if you want to tell us your rating, or you just want to let us know what you thought about something we said or whatever, make sure you go hit us up. You can, of course, go to W2Mnet.com and comment on this episode. You can also do it on YouTube as well. Just leave your comments and thoughts on whatever you heard us say, or maybe you just want to give your thoughts on NXT Takeover Chicago. Plus, don't forget to go check out W2Mnet.com. Don't forget to go subscribe to Wrestling to the Max or to the W2M Network. We appreciate all of you for coming and joining joining us tonight. I am Gary Vaughan, and that is Paul Leazar and Mr. Sean Garmer, and we will see you guys next time. Until then, if you're not living life to the max.
Not living life at all.
You know it.
Please.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.